On the far side of the moon, there is a boundary of absolute silence. There was a moment 4 astronauts completely lost contact with Earth. No signal, not a single voice. For 40 solid minutes. The spacecraft integrity was swallowed from humanity's sight by that colossal rock. No one on the ground knew for sure what they were truly seeing in that terrifying darkness. For the first time after 53 years of waiting, humanity once again tore through Earth's safety zone to plunge straight into the abyss. What risks did Artemis 2 carry? How was it different from Apollo? And what did they actually witness? Rewind to 6:35 p.m, the 1st of April 2026. The SLS mega rocket was preparing to ignite, but right before 0, the screen reported an FTS error, the flight termination system. Just one faulty sensor, the giant bomb containing millions of gallons of fuel, would be detonated in the sky to protect the ground. 4 humans were locked tightly inside the capsule, strapped atop a pending disaster, completely helpless. Even though it was later just a false alarm and the SLS still tore through the sky, that heart-stopping incident was a chilling warning. Stepping off Earth has never been safe. And the most terrifying thing was still patiently waiting for them ahead. This is Dark Orbit. Thank you for joining us in Stepping into the Abyss. The fireball that lit up the Florida sky that night came from the SLS, the most powerful machine NASA had ever built. But behind that brilliant aura, the SLS carries a reputation, incredibly complex. It is a project that consumed billions of dollars, drowning in criticism over delays, budget overruns, and a technical record riddled with scars. Right before this mission, the atmosphere at NASA was stretched taut like a wire. In February 2026, the rocket stack suffered a hydrogen leak. Not long after, helium began to leak out. Thousands of tons of metal had to limp back to the hangar, be torn apart, inspected, patched up, and then brought out to the launch pad once again. Therefore, the April 1st launch was not merely a technical achievement. It was the moment NASA was backed into a corner, forced to prove that this machine riddled with skepticism was truly capable of throwing humans out of Earth's safe orbit. And betting their lives on that machine were 4 humans. Commander Reed Wiseman, the one holding the life or death responsibility, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen, a specialist from the Canadian Space Agency. Jeremy's presence made him the first Canadian to touch deep space. Along with the service module, built all the way in Germany by the European Space Agency, Artemis 2 was no longer the exclusive game of a single nation. It was the collective gamble of all humanity. They called their ship Integrity Wholeness, a beautiful name, symbolizing the connection between nations, the perfect integration of machinery, but in the absolute vacuum, where temperatures can melt or freeze blood vessels in an instant, integrity is also the only thing separating those 4 fragile biological bodies from a silent death in deep space. How long could that integrity last? 8.5 minutes after leaving the launch pad, the SLS Fire Tyrant died out. The violent shaking gave way to weightlessness. The spacecraft Integrity was placed into Earth orbit at an altitude of 100 miles, before the upper rocket stage continued to push it into a suspended orbit 43,500 miles above the ground. This is the final stop. A cold waiting room situated at the edge of the human world, before they truly plunge into the abyss. Why wait? Because this is only the second flight of the Orion spacecraft line, and the first time it houses life. NASA needed a final checkpoint to exhaust the limits of every life support system before betting the entire lives of the crew on the moon. And right at the most magnificent boundary of humanity, space dealt them a psychological blow from the most trivial of things. The toilet suction fan system malfunctioned, forcing them to make do with backup equipment in the middle of a microgravity environment. Worse still, they were locked out of their NASA Microsoft Outlook emails by the system, a broken toilet, and an email glitch. Sounds ridiculous. But at an altitude of tens of thousands of miles, it is a stark and terrifying reminder they are not gods going out to conquer the stars. They are still just frail biological bodies, imprisoned in a cramped metal box, enduring extreme inconveniences and completely dependent on algorithms that can fail at any moment. On the evening of April 2nd, the ground crew voted. The final decision was passed. The spacecraft integrity was cleared to perform the transfer burn trans-lunar injection. The main engine on the European service module blazed brightly. The thrust tore through Earth's gravitational anchor. 4 humans were officially hurled into a free-flying orbit, free return trajectory. From this moment on, there is no turning back. If everything goes according to plan, the moon's gravity will seize the spacecraft, sling it around the dark side, and then throw it back toward Earth like a giant slingshot. That is a safety line of the laws of physics. But try to imagine you are hurling yourself into the endless darkness at tens of thousands of miles per hour, and your only hope of survival is the gravitational pull from a dead celestial body. After the violent burn to tear through gravity, the jolting machine suddenly sank into a spine-chilling silence. Integrity now glided through the boundless void. The thrust was off, leaving them only to drift along the orbit, surrendering themselves to the hands of the laws of physics. And in that slow waiting period, at a distance of 100,000 miles away from home, the crew pointed the camera backward to take a picture that forced humanity to hold its breath. They called it Hello World. Every day, we are accustomed to seeing Earth through densely stitched photos from low-orbit satellites. But from the perspective of Artemis 2, Earth is no longer a colossal sphere. It appears as a complete glass sphere, suspended, solitary, and heartbreakingly fragile amidst a pitch-black ocean. Look deeply into this frame, sunlight just barely licks across the horizon, creating a rim of light as thin as a thread about to snap. The night side of the planet does not sink into complete darkness, but is dimly lit by an eerie light, reflecting back from the moon itself. That is the moment the boundary between dry engineering and human emotion is blurred. 4 astronauts realize a suffocating truth. Ahead of their ship's nose is a deadly celestial body, and behind their backs is all of history. Everyone they love, the entirety of humanity's existence, shrinking down to the size of a coin. And they are leaving it behind. At a distance of more than 252,000 miles away from Earth, the Artemis 2 crew officially broke all limits. They have travelled further than any human who ever lived. But the price of that record was a breathtakingly overwhelming sight. From the window of the spacecraft integrity, the moon is no longer a romantic silver disk floating in the night sky. It swells up, becoming a colossal stone sphere, rough, jagged, filling every corner of their vision. We have always believed the moon was ash grey. That is how camera lenses have deceived humanity for over half a century. But digital cameras cannot compare to human biological eyes, something evolved over millions of years to capture the subtlest shifts in light and contrast. Staring down at the surface, they discovered that the moon is not monochromatic at all. It hides bands of brown, and even strange streaks of pale green light clinging to the craters. It doesn't look like a dead rock. It looks like a giant fossilized body. As they drew closer, they found something that no ground map had ever recorded: 2 brand new impact craters. Recent high-energy impacts had torn through the greyish outer skin, causing brilliant, glowing dust to surge up from deep below. Christina Koch likened them to glowing holes poked into an old map. One crater was proposed to be named Integrity, the name of their ship. The other crater was called Carol, after Commander Reed Wiseman's late wife. But that emotion was quickly swallowed by the strangeness. The spacecraft Integrity began to slide across the boundary. They passed over the Oriental Basin, a massive impact scar 600 miles wide, the remnant of a terrifying strike from 3.8 billion years ago. For the first time, humans saw the full shape of this grand wound with the naked eye. And right behind that boundary was the far side. People often call it the dark side. That is a misconception. The far side of the moon is still fully illuminated. It is only dark because it permanently hides its face from Earth's view, and when light casts upon this forbidden land, a geological mystery that makes scientists shudder emerges. If the near side facing Earth is smooth with giant lava seas, the far side is a desolate, deformed, cratered land with razor-sharp cliffs and violently rugged terrain. Why? Why is volcanic activity only concentrated on the side facing us? Why does the moon hide its most scarred and chaotic face? The long, razor-sharp shadows at the Terminator line give them no answers. They only make the scenery even more chilling. From orbit, the gaze of Artemis II is locked onto the South Pole Aitken Basin, a massive, deathly black hole reigning over the South Pole. Apollo chose to land in flat, safe equatorial regions, but Artemis does not. This generation's destination is the darkness beneath those permanently shadowed polar ice craters. NASA doesn't just want to touch the moon once more. This time, they want to take root, build outposts, and survive on this very jagged hellscape. They are preparing to wake a world that has slept for billions of years. Just as the darkness of the far side swallowed the ship, a chilling astronomical phenomenon unfolded before their eyes. But it wasn't a sunset, it was Earthset, the Earth setting. From the perspective of the 4 astronauts, the home planet with 8 billion lives was sinking, then was sliced away by the razor-sharp lunar horizon, and at the exact moment the last bit of blue light flickered out, all laser and radio communications were completely severed. The massive 7.3 quintillion ton rock had officially stood between integrity and home. This is the 40 minutes of utter silence we mentioned from the beginning. A primal and absolute isolation. No radio guidance, no turning back. 4 humans locked in a fragile metal cocoon, drifting in the darkness behind a dead celestial body. No one on the ground knows what they are experiencing, and perhaps they themselves are having to fight the deepest instinctual fear of the biological genetic code, the fear of being abandoned in the abyss. But the orbit did not allow them to be stuck forever. Those 40 suffocating minutes ended when integrity emerged from the other side. Earthrise. Earthrise. This site once shocked humanity in 1968 through the lens of Apollo 8, but this time it is not just a reminder of the past, it is the dawn of a new era. A new generation has just stepped across the boundary of death and returned to the light. However, the universe still held one final performance before casting them back home. Just as they escaped the moon's shadow, they witnessed another occultation phenomenon, a total solar eclipse viewed from the far side. From this position, the moon was so gargantuan that it completely devoured the Sunday, and because the difference in apparent size was so vast, this eclipse did not take place in a few brief minutes like on Earth. It lasted for nearly 54 grueling minutes. Old photos often lead us to the misconception that space is starless because the sunlight is too blinding. But when the curtains of light close, the universe reveals its true face. The Milky Way, the planets, and billions of star systems appear brilliant and cold. At that moment, the 4 astronauts realize they didn't just go to the moon. They were just allowed by the universe to peek through the crack in the door of eternity. The universe's performance comes to a close. The next 4 days are a freefall in silence to return home. But returning does not mean safety. In reality, the entire 10-day journey was just a warm-up for the true life or death test. Returning to Earth is one of the most violent and dangerous maneuvers that humans have ever dared to perform. They are not landing. They are hurling a bullet into a wall of air. Earth's atmosphere is like a steel lake. The spacecraft integrity must slam into it at a perfectly precise angle. If the angle is too shallow, the ship will skip across the atmosphere like a stone skipping on water, being bounced back into the abyss of space, and the crew will slowly suffocate as the oxygen is depleted. And if the angle is too steep, air resistance will rip the hull apart, melting the ship into a metallic fireball before anyone has time to feel the pain. There is no room for error. 20 minutes before encountering the atmosphere, the sacrifice begins. The service module, the machine that had sustained them throughout the journey, is discarded and immediately incinerated into ash. The crew module uses its last bit of energy to flip around, exposing the heat shield to the front. This is the moment of truth. This heat shield is the very thing that suffered gruesome and unexpected erosion and peeling during the Artemis 1 test flight. NASA had to patch it, refine it, and bet that this time it would hold firm. The capsule hurtles into the atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour, 32 times the speed of sound. The air cannot move out of the way fast enough. It is compressed so intensely that molecules are ripped apart, transforming into a blazing sphere of plasma, baking the hull at temperatures near 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. G-forces crush the crew's chests at 4 times their body weight. And then static takes over. The plasma wall has blocked all radio waves. NASA loses contact once again. 6 minutes. 6 minutes of absolute silence in the heart of the inferno. During those 6 minutes, no one knew if the heat shield was being torn apart like in the previous mission. 4 humans were lying inside a giant incinerator, free falling from the sky. But then, a hoarse call crackled through the radio. The fireball faded. 3 giant parachutes unfurled. At 5:07 p.m., off the coast of San Diego, Integrity slammed into the waters of the Pacific Ocean. A 10-day journey, nearly 700,000 miles through the abyss and back. They had survived the fire of destiny. But the universe seemed to want to tease them one last time. As the rescue helicopters approached, a strange communication incident occurred. Commander Reed Wiseman could hear every word from the rescue team clearly, but in response, the ground heard absolutely nothing. Even though it was just a radio glitch that caused a few minutes of delay, it felt like a ghost of the silence that had followed them from the far side of the moon all the way back home. The hatch finally swung open. For the first time in 10 days of being confined in recycled air that reeked of electronic components, their lungs were filled with the true breath of Earth, the salt-heavy scent of the ocean. One by one, they were pulled from the capsule, stepping onto the fragile inflatable raft they jokingly called the front porch. Navy officers checked every heartbeat, unbuckling straps and removing helmets. 2 helicopters took turns, hoisting them into the sky to transport them to the fleet's medical bay. Biologically, all 4 were fine, but psychologically, they were no longer the same 4 people who had left 10 days ago. Apollo was a sprint, a magnificent, high-stakes demonstration of power and possibility, but its legacy was ultimately a series of abandoned footprints in the lunar dust. Artemis is different. It carries an ambition that is heavier, more permanent, and far more perilous. While Artemis 2 did not touch the surface, it served as the pathfinder, the mission that proved our biology and our machines can withstand the deep space transition. It has ignited a new race where the prize is no longer just a flag and a return ticket. Artemis 2 is not the moment humans set foot on the moon, but it is the moment we officially reclaim the path that leads there. This time, the mission is not just a round trip. The goal is to stay longer, to peer deeper into the abyss, and to begin stretching our civilization beyond the safe boundaries of home. Humanity has truly returned, and whatever lies waiting in the darkness out there, we are coming for it. This is Dark Orbit. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming dossiers. Thank you for journeying with us.